during the period when the company was still owned by the state? Or was it gotten rid of during the process of putting the company in the private
I think the
hands?
company was still owned by the state when they got rid of it, or it was just about the change. I don't remember exactly.
What happened is that during the Linden period, they started to, the company was owned by the state, they started to privatize some aspect of it, and they chose the power, and they privatized that, right? And they privatized it, as Aubrey made the point to their friends, and these people went and they went to the Republic Bank and they took a massive loan on that on that power
Was
plant.
Bino involved in this?
Yes, there was, Bino was involved, right? The same people that Bino and them were together, those are people who took that loan. And
So it's no surprise that Bino is now with them.
no surprise, because the company went into the power plant, the company that owned the power plant, that went into receivership. The steam power plant, it went into receivership by the Republic Bank, right? But when Campbell came and they took the company, took Linden Mine, what they did is to bring down a number of those generators that they had at OMI at the gold operation. They brought them to Linden, and what they did was to concentrate on producing power by way of diesel generation, and in doing so, because they brought their own power, the other generators, diesel generators that were there since Linden Mine, those generators were taken up, were removed from Linden. One went to Versailles and one went to Unfawad. Two regions that were that PPP won over a number of years. PPP supporters are there, right? So that is how that's one element of this entire power.
There's normally this talk about the idea is integration of the power supply throughout the country, and they even refer to Burnham as the one who initiated integration. Is there any real integration of the power system that involves Linden being able to pipe and or to receive power from Georgetown?
Well, I think that what is evident is the fact that that statement that the Prime Minister continues to refer to was taken out of context, and that what the Prime Minister then was trying to do was to allow cheap electricity to be afforded to the people.
The Prime Minister then, who are you talking about?
Mr. Borman.
Mr. Borman.
Was trying to encourage for cheap electricity to be given to the people of Georgetown and the rest of Guyana by allowing the excess which was produced at a far less rate in Linden to be given to people in Georgetown using the 69 kV lines. And there was an integrated, a physical system that allowed for the connectivity of the two networks. So there isn't any at the moment. Linden is self-generating and it's not on the grid of GPL. Right. So that is what the Prime Minister then was trying to do.
So in fact all you're integrating is rates, not the system.
Yes.
And one could well say that when Burnham talked about integrating the system,
there was a physical system.
A physical integration where cheaper power was being brought onto the national grid.
Exactly.
Now it is still cheaper power, but being brought onto the national grid by similar rates.
Exactly.
But you know something about this. What people, Sarmines keep talking about 1976. What Burnham said, but we cannot remove what Burnham said. We cannot just take out what Burnham said about electricity. We need to look at it in a holistic sense. 76 was the year when the unions and the company and Guy Mine agreed on a massive what you call a benefit package, not only for bauxite workers and even the city council in Linden, because what you had was we agree they had an agreement at Housing Drive where the company produced, where the company will have paid, give 125 workers $6,000 a month, $6,000 6,000 Guyana dollar as a grant towards housing. You had a situation where you would have had $50 towards $50 towards buying books as an education grant. We were able to negotiate a special rate, a grant towards trade union education. There were a number of things, and that was the period that you have had a massive housing drive, which encompassed not only bauxite workers, but it took on board teachers, city council employees. You have had WISROC housing schemes, phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. You have had Amelia's Ward self-help. You have had the Aichuni housing scheme. You have had the Kukwani housing scheme, and you have had the Bormine housing scheme.
All these are housing schemes in the Borneo era?
These are schemes that were that generated out of that initiative or that agreement between the unions and the company during that.
I got the impression that
years.
Housing schemes are something recent.
You know, I have friends who said to me that when they went to WISROC or Amelia's Ward to live, they were given a key and they pushed it in and carried the furniture.
But
right?
you know, there's another point I think we need to stress. People forget that in negotiations, bauxite workers used to forego wage increases to keep their electricity bill down. And that was the time when bauxite workers had money. That was the time when you had over 5,000 to 6,000 bauxite workers. You got but 400 now. The rest of the community is basically unemployed except for teachers and a few people. Now, it is evident that the government is wicked. You first of all destroy a system that was generating cheap electricity. We must not forget, it is not the first time they went after the people of Linden. The people of Linden used to get benefits from the hospital. They took away the hospital and they put it under the Ministry of Health. And the medical service in Linden have declined terribly. Water. Used to have water, properly treated water. These corrupt officials move it, they dug a well that never produced water, and they have destroyed the social services in Linden. Now, it is evident to anybody who is reasonable that the government discriminates against Linden.
But could we say this? Linden may have been referred to as a typical classical company town in its inception. Has the political economy of Linden really changed in a manner that you can say it's no longer a company town?
You can say it's no longer a company town because when it was a company town, a large section of the people worked with the company. There were benefits from the company. What has happened in recent times is there's the virtual destruction of the company. I just mentioned there are only about 400 bauxite workers. If you move around Linden, you will come into contact with more unemployed than employed people. Linden essentially, I mean, Sam Hines allowed idiocy to transcend the normal.
So the political economic relationship hasn't changed. People are still
it's gotten worse.
Largely dependent
Yes.
on the bauxite company, but the bauxite company is no longer producing.
And it has. I mean, when the Prime Minister can say Linden people got pitbull bus. I mean,
what that means?
There are some buses in Linden that they call pitbull, these new buses. And he's trying to equate pitbull buses with development. The truth of the matter is, it is no judge or yardstick for development. The reality of Linden is that it's a depressed community. Apart from remittances, in large measure, there is nothing happening in Linden. They tried with LEAP, that leap out of data, and there has been no employment created. Daniel Ramatar promised 2,000 jobs once we win. They forgot that. Dr. Jagan promised to make Linden into a free zone in which investment will come, etc. Mr. Jagdu had promised to make it the centerpiece. All promises, everything that they did, deprive Linden of resources and put Linden in the position that it is today.
You talked about...
In fact, the only thing they're adding to Linden is police station.
You talked about the free zone with an idea of the road from Brazil coming through Linden, but I also hear talk about the road going to Berbice.
In fact, when we spoke to the president this afternoon, he said that there are concerns by the stakeholder, which is the premier stakeholder being Brazil, the Brazilian government, that actions by Lindeners have put into question the road coming through because persons are insecure. And I think what that in itself spells is that there is maybe alternative opinions lingering within the government that they
Is it lingering or active?
Well, the fact that they have not moved, the fact that the Brazilians had asked them, the studies were done, were conducted for them to rehabilitate over 30 bridges so that they can have the Brazilians to just make the road accessible or all the road, and it has not been moved on by the government, would indicate the point that you're making.
But I would not call a president a liar. But I doubt the Brazilians would have said that. Brazil has an interest in coming through Linden and having access to the Atlantic. It is in Brazil's interest to put the highway through Linden. In fact, in Parliament I had argued that if they did that road and we didn't